I'd like to introduce you to Julie Evans. She has 10 years of experience in leadership positions in large fashion brands like Zara, and founded Sustalytics, a B2B SaaS platform that cuts inventory waste in the fashion industry by predicting what will sell. Through the testing phase, on average, Sustalytics clients have reduced their inventory overstock by 23% and saved 20% of their budget. Clients include Galeries Lafayette, I don't know if I'm saying that right, Levi's, cool, Havaianas, Arena, among others. And Sustalytics has been getting some really great press too. They were mentioned in TechCrunch as the new kid on the block in the Miami tech scene. They were selected in the 500 startups boot camps, and they were a part of the very first Google Launchpad program outside of Silicon Valley. Now, Sustalytics' end goal is to build real-time forecasting of which fashion trends will sell and which just will not, based on market intelligence. So Julie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so what's the last thing that you learned that got you really, really excited, and why?
So, you know how you have to connect, well, especially in the pandemic, we all have to connect so much, like on Zoom calls, and like organize our agenda, which is kind of like crazy, especially if you're like on different time zones. So there was one thing that got me super excited that I'm sharing with everyone I know. So maybe, you know, people listening as well. It's a tool called MixMax. And it's just, yeah, it's really great. You just add it on and it will sync with your own calendar. And like in one click, you can like see your availability and like share a few slots of time that work for you, but it's very visual. So the other person receives that email and like kind of visualize different slots. And in one click, the person is in your agenda. Like, even if you don't know each other, and this has like changed my whole rhythm. So I don't know, that's like the little latest thing that got me excited, and I'm sharing with everybody I'm working. I was like, oh, you have to try MixMax. You know, it really changed the deal for me. So yeah,
that's really cool. That sounds really cool. Actually, I use Calendly right now. It's not quite similar though. So yeah, you used to use that.
Yeah, and this one is just, yeah, it's for the person who received the email, it's one click, and I felt like I have much more meetings now because it's really like super.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Much more in meetings I was hoping for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then it's a good thing. Awesome. So what do you think in terms of fashion? There's obviously, you know, it's an industry that's been around for a long, long time, right? What do you think is really missing in fashion in terms of brands' ability to use data effectively right now?
So I think fashion has always been led by like, it's a creative world. So it's not, fashion is not about data, although the whole world has like shifted to data. Like all the other industries have been totally like revolutionized in one way or another. So I definitely think that the fashion industry needs to start looking at that, because we're at a tipping point. I don't think the fashion industry can continue the way it is going today. I mean, there was already problems before the pandemic, but right now they're having the biggest inventory crisis ever. So what I feel they would miss, like in the brand ability, is kind of first to understand the value of data, have the ability of organizing and collecting this data in the right way. Just to give an example, we've been sharing data with a few brands, clients that we work with, and sometimes you can encounter data which says, you know, stock -8, and then you have some sales there. So, you know, this is like what I say when I say like organizing and collecting the right data. And then at the end, I also think that it's great to collect data, but you need like a partner, like a bridge to understand the value of the data and make use of this value. So if you only have a scientist and you only have like a fashion business person, each on their own might not get any value, but together, that's when they will make the most value come out of the data. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it really does. Yeah. So going back to the first point, so you said that the first thing that's keeping them back is kind of the ability to collect good data on an ongoing basis. And the second thing would be having a partner that would act as a bridge for them to be able to make the most of that data. considering that fashion on its own as a field is not really like a, you know, an analytical kind of minded. Yeah, traditionally it's more of a creatively minded field, which makes sense. Question for you from there. So all the companies that I've worked with in the past, and all the, you know, most of the companies that we work with right now at Edlitera, like, you know, and also in the B2B world in general, there's usually like a pretty solid collection of software tools that companies use to collect data. So, you know, you have your SAP, you have your, you know, your CRM, you have your whatever you use for bookkeeping, you know, and whatnot. So like there's a very solid kind of data collection infrastructure in most companies. And what I'm hearing from you is that in fashion, there isn't really that at the level of like inventory planning.
So there is like SAP is like very famous as well in the fashion industry, and I've worked in many companies who actually had SAP.
Right.
So to paint the picture of their own experience was that it's a very heavy integration that is very costly. Unfortunately, I think most of them kind of abandon in the way because they don't see the value and they don't exploit fully the potential, also for financial reasons, because it's really heavy. So in my own experience, I've seen that they started, but they never really got anything out of it, because I think it's too like intricate. So as you say, there's so many systems out there, and I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of like amazing CEOs, and what keeps coming back is that their dream is like one thing that would integrate all of them. They're like, you cannot imagine how many systems we have. Like this is their dream, like a truly like omni-channel that covers everything. This is what they're like asking for. So
yeah, this is what they're asking for, and you know, you guys are well positioned to deliver it, because at the end of the day, the fashion industry, coming back to your point earlier, Julie, is just not set up right to crunch numbers. That's not core to their business.
No, yeah, exactly. I think it's because they're a creative world, they see it differently, but it's also like, well, I feel our mission as Sustalytics is also to bridge that gap and show that data can also be a support for creatives. It's really kind of like making the data sexy, to put it like in
I definitely hear you. Yeah, for sure. So in terms of the industry as a whole, the fashion industry, what is the future of work? I think you've touched a little bit upon that, but what do you see? What is, if you were to zoom forward, you know, 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the line, starting with a smaller time frame, like what do you think is going to happen that's going to change fundamentally how the industry works, and how do you think we're going to get there?
I think that's a great question, and I believe it's really happening now because it's at a tipping point. But I always like to mention the music industry, and that we think back of the music industry and how it lived this revolution. It seemed that it was, you know, with the streaming, and you know, it was kind of, you remember when we were kids, you know, we were copying CDs, and you know, that was a big problem for the industry to put it in a plain way. And so it felt like the music industry was crushing. But at the end of the story, because we were able to start streaming and sharing music, we started to revolutionize this industry. But like the power is now in the hands of consumers. It's now in our hands. Like before, it was a big music company who would decide, you know, which would be the next big hit that we would listen to all summer. But now it's not the case anymore. I always give the example of Despacito. Like we made Despacito a success because we listened to it like I don't know how many billion times. So this is what happened in the music industry. And in a way, in my ideal world, it's like, why don't we do that in the fashion industry? For now, in the fashion industry, it's still big companies and big groups and big brands deciding on what we should wear. And what is happening is that sometimes we don't want it. And actually, I can tell you at least a third of what they produce, if not more, as stuff that we don't want. So I think it cannot continue living that way anymore. And now we're so connected that they should really like make us part of this process. And if you think about it, sometimes I'm like, I mean, marketing is about, you know, A/B testing on consumers. It's about the consumer response. All the algorithm that have been like developed for all social media is about our response. It's about our behavior. Netflix produces like TV series analyzing our consumer behavior. So
Yep.
for me, in my other way, I see it, and of course that's why I work on Sustalytics, is that, you know, maybe the power to the consumers and kind of shifting the industry.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, I think look at Amazon, right? They're a customer-centric company. That's how they got so big so quickly, right? Like that's everything is focused on the you know, learning what the customer wants and giving it to them in the best possible way. So yeah, and definitely I think fashion is one of those things where, you know, I can't imagine any woman and probably man out there going to a store and trying something out because they want it, and then figuring out that, hey, look, you know, this top looks great in the picture, but turns out it's way too boxy on me, and I can't really get it because everything is boxy. You know, that's kind of how it goes. And you know, maybe this is just the trend that is going right now, but you know, for some people, you know, that probably doesn't work. And there are companies that kind of cater to those people, and you know, those of us who, for example, can't do boxy, you know, we'll find a way to find them. So
exactly, but let's help the companies not overproduce the boxy thing if like nobody wants it, basically.
exactly, yeah, and then take them out back and burning them like I heard is being done. So
Yeah,
that's doesn't help anybody. So how do you spend your days these days? What do you occupy your time with most as Sustalytics these days?
you know, I thought, yeah, that question is funny because every time people ask you that, you're like, okay, yeah, so what today? So usually most of my time is like connecting with the team, managing the team, following up, so a lot of follow-up, and then jumping on calls. I do a lot of those, so my day is kind of like rhythmed with different calls. And sometimes I go on a call and I'm like, oh, you know, I have to kind of be reminded who I'm jumping on a call with. So I'd say most of my day is that, which has really shifted, you know, as you kind of, when you start a company to when you continue like growing it to when you're going, you know, after client, it really evolved and continues evolving.
Yeah, so how did your just curious though, how did that change for you between, you know, before the pandemic and now? Like what has fundamentally changed in how you work with companies on fashion analytics?
So I'd say like before the pandemic, we were like running to provide our services to clients, and we were like totally focused on that. And all of a sudden, it's as if the whole world like paused. So it was the first time that we were actually taking the time to step back and say, you know, let's build like a brand image. Let's think about our strategy. You know how sometimes you're running to do things and you never took the step back, which can actually be more efficient on the long term. So we really decided to focus our efforts on that and gather like ourselves with people who are like specialized in that. So I'd say that this is the way it changed. And we started having a brand book and like a brand image. We started different social media channels. We started learning, you know, what kind of content our clients enjoy most, and trying to, you know, build that content to generate interest, like showing the world out there what we do with examples. And it's been a continual learning, actually. So I'd say that's like, it was a huge difference of how we were working before. It's like as if we were working in the shadow before, kind of going more like on referrals and things like that, and to all of a sudden thinking like of a global strategy, of a global brand, and, you know, having some templates and that kind of thing. So I'd say it's,
Yeah, so in a word, I guess, in more words, getting better organized, right? In the sense of, yeah, in the sense of kind of shifting everything online.
exactly.
Yeah, I hear you. It was very similar for us, I guess, and for everybody probably, when your entire world kind of shifted online and that just became the thing that you do all the time. So I do think that, when you start a company for the first time, and at least this is how it went for me, this is how it felt for me in the beginning. So you kind of start out having a vague idea of what you want to do, and you start like trying things out and seeing what works, what sticks, and then doing more of what works in terms of like developing that idea and growing that concept. A bit like throwing a bunch of spaghetti to the wall and seeing if something sticks, and then throwing more of what sticks next time. Did it feel the same to you, or was it just us?
No, it's always like that. And it's like a continual process of learning like what the client wants. Like, to give you examples, like, because we call Sustalytics, which stands for sustainable analytics. So because it's analytics, at the beginning, when we would provide services to clients, we would give them like tons of like tables and distribution and like analytics about, the data that we were seeing. And for me, it felt like, oh, it's so interesting. Like, I see value in the data. And it's by talking with clients that I understood that basically they don't really care about all the details. They just want to have a clear answer and a visual clear answer. So that was kind of a learning from, okay, okay, I'm doing all this, but this is actually what they want. And then again, we had to kind of improve. We would give them, okay, this clear visual answer. But even there, like, I was seeing tons of data more into one like ranking, for example. But I started understanding that they didn't see that data. So we started also kind of developing a way of helping our clients like take even more value from a data. Like, to give you an example, it's like we had this new brand, so new sustainable brands. They were testing like different jackets for men, testing it in different like color combinations. And so obviously I can give you like a ranking and tell you, okay, this is the best color combination, and you want to maybe avoid doing that kind of colors. But also from the data, we're like, if you look at the different products, you can understand consumers enjoy white sleeves, because every time you had, the same combination, but the one with the white sleeve was ranking higher. So this is definitely a tip for you to keep in mind of like what your consumers like. And I can, expand into so many insights like that. So like a hat will sell better with a pom-pom, and little details like that. And that's what we're building. When I say like we're going towards market intelligence, it's really kind of tagging all those details so that eventually it will be the machine like calculating and learning from the data, being able to tell you, in a snap, all those kinds of details.
Yeah, that's really cool. Honestly, I mean, bringing that kind of efficiency is, to an industry that hasn't seen, I guess, as fast or as efficient. Bringing efficiency to an industry that hasn't seen efficient data usage before is really cool. And honestly, like I'm cheering you on. And obviously, I've known you for a really long time, and I've been cheering you on since the very beginning, because this is really the kind of thing that is going to keep the world of fashion evolving, and that is going to give, us the people what we want in the best way possible. So definitely cool.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, what's a really cool, something that you're working on right now, a cool project or a cool initiative that you really want to share with the world?
So just recently, and it was just published this week, we are partnering with Zelingo. So Zelingo is another big retail tech player. They are a sourcing platform. So the idea, just to explain what is sourcing, the idea is that you can start off your brand with Sustalytics by testing your design and finding out, which designs consumers will fall in love with. And you can use the Zelingo platform to be able to source those products. It's like they do all the sourcing, but you have it done digitally, and it's fully transparent. You can follow the whole production process. You can follow like each little approval that is made on every detail of the product. And really and what I thought was amazing on the platform as well is that they started offering like a lot of sustainable fabrics like bamboo, hemp. So it's like at the tip of your fingers, you now can access like sourcing solutions that wasn't there before, unless you were like working in a big company and they would put that at your disposal. It's like you have a team out there working with you. So I'm actually super happy to start partnering with them, and they're actually really big. So very exciting.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome, because you're basically making it even easier. You're kind of like making the process of using data and using consumer preferences to make stocking decisions, and to make decisions about what to produce in the future. So you're kind of inching further closer, bringing it down to a click, I guess, which is probably the dream.
Yeah, exactly. It is, exactly.
Nice. That's really awesome. And have you noticed any sort of differences? I'm just curious, because I know that you're French and you started Sustalytics in France, and you primarily worked in the beginning with brands in Europe. What's the biggest difference that you've seen between brands in, fashion brands in Europe versus fashion brands in the US?
I'd say consumer preferences, I think, were the main difference. You can see actually differences between the two territories. And I do believe one trend in the US that is bigger might, come to Europe maybe like a season later. But there are definitely some differences. I'm going to give you a dumb example, but like biker shorts, super trendy. Like activewear, first of all, is like super trendy. So the biker shorts are much more likely to sell in the US than they are in Europe. And then if you think about it, really, it's kind of like, I think that the whole collections are different. If you think Gap is like huge in the US, but it's not in Europe. And for me, it kind of goes with that example of like biker shorts and what works here, which doesn't obviously work in Europe. I'm going to give you like examples with Italians who love, some fitted dress. And so here I'm going into some macro trends, but that's just to give like funny examples of some differences.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's definitely a difference between, kind of the lifestyle and really the geography, I guess, in the US versus Europe. Because I do remember, last time I was in France was a really long time ago, but I do remember a lot of people biking around the city, right? I'm thinking Paris in particular, right? So, and especially I remember seeing a lot of women wearing, short skirts and high heels biking around Paris. And now that I think about it, definitely you would probably not catch them dead in biker shorts, even though they would probably be a lot more comfortable.
No, I don't think so either. And I used to be one of those people biking. Yeah.
And you would not have thought to wear biker shorts back then?
No.
Would you wear them now that you live in the US and everybody's doing it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. You can see what you've been missing out on. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's really interesting. This is kind of, we have globalization, I think, across everything. Like if you look at every industry out there, we all listen to the same music, we all eat the same foods, we all go to the same, we all go and see the same movies everywhere across the world. But when it comes to fashion and the way people dress, there are still like these kind of bastions of culture that have yet to be broken down, which honestly I think is a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And consumer behavior is also, I think in fashion, it's where it matters the most. It's not like, I remember Ortega, who's the founder of Zara, he said that we don't do nails. It means that, it's easy to calculate, how many you need, because it's very like straightforward. Like, maybe in some more like commodity products, it's really straightforward, but fashion has this like trend consumer behavior affecting it. So I think, yeah, in the fashion industry, it's even more present, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. It comes back to that creative aspect that you were saying, but definitely I hope that you guys really take over the fashion world in terms of bringing data and analytics to it, because I think it can only help.
Thank you so much.
Julie, one last thing. For anybody out there who wants to learn more about Sustalytics, who perhaps wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
So they can go on our website, so sustalytics.com. They can find us very active as well on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn page, an Instagram page, a YouTube page, where we share a lot of content and insights on cool trends that are most likely to sell as well, to get inspired. So yeah, that's where I invite everyone to start learning about us, about what we do, and also testing it out on the website. You can also register to test out Sustalytics platform.
Awesome. That's great. We're going to include all of those things in all the links under the episode, so you can see exactly where Julie and Sustalytics are and what they're doing right now. And Julie, thanks so much again for joining me today.
Thanks.
It was really, really great to hear about all the cool things that you're working on.
Thanks to you, Claudia. Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Bye.
Bye.